right, everybody, welcome to another episode of UX Pathways. And I have the honor of being joined by Darren Hood. How are you, Darren?
Doing fantastic, Mark. Thanks for having me today. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you too. And I know you have always something excellent to say about user experience. And I'm curious to understand your background, how you got into
Mhm.
UX. But let's start out with just a real quick question. What is your role in
Sure.
the industry? What are you doing right now?
Currently, sort of a widespread responsibility when I think about it. I'm currently during the day when I don't have on my bat outfit, so to speak. I am doing my work as a principal product designer for OmniCell. We're involved in the autonomous pharmacy work. We have robots in the pharmacy to help with healthcare, and I work specifically currently, although that could potentially change soon. I'm currently working on the software that healthcare systems use to manage their medications, their compounds within their systems. And we're in over half of the large medical systems in the United States and outside the country as well. But we have a pretty big footprint, and we're leaders in that space.
And I know you also are an educator.
Yes, and that's when I go to put on my outfit and jump in my Batmobile, if you will, so to speak. I teach currently at Kent State University, where we're both alums. I'm a professor there. I've been teaching there in that program since 2015. I teach human-computer interaction courses that I design also at Lawrence Tech, which is where I reside in Michigan. Or I could actually ride my bike there, really close to my home. I recently began teaching at Harrisburg University in Pennsylvania, where I'm helping in the master's program there. I'm also on the verge of joining and him helping to design UX related content for a CX master's program at Michigan State University. And I'm in talks to join the folks at Syracuse University as well. So that's a lot of what I'm doing in helping in UX spaces today.
That's amazing. And I know you've been at it since 1995.
Yes.
So, how did you get into user experience? There's always a story.
Always a story. The funny thing is, everybody who has the early stories, our stories are almost identical with very slight variations. And the main part of that story is none of us planned on it, and I have the same story. It just happened. It just happened. And with me, I was working in conjunction with a nonprofit. And the nonprofit, of course, everybody started getting our computers. I'm one of those people that was in line at Best Buy they were opening all over the country, and I wanted to get my whopping 25 megabyte hard drive computer. We have documents now that are 25 megabytes. But everybody was rushing to the internet. We had our AOL floppies, and we were all trying to rush to the internet and CompuServe and all those other weird things that nobody done. I don't know if they exist anymore or what, but there was a nonprofit that wanted to get on the web. Everybody's running to the web. They wanted to get on the web like everybody else. These conversations happen everywhere. I want to get on the web, but I don't know how. I happen to be involved. I say, you know what? I've been looking at this. I think I can help. Little did I know that was going to be the beginning of my journey. And some people were just web designers, and at one time, I didn't used to take credit for doing UX work in 1995. I always talked about it from the perspective of my full-time venture into UX, but I was working on what I came to know as information architecture. I was doing usability testing. I didn't call it information architecture. I didn't call it usability testing. I didn't realize I was examining cognitive load and things like that, but I didn't know to call it that. But really, truthfully, that's what I was doing. And I ended up starting a freelance web design business during which I did all the UX-y things that we now know. It wasn't called UX for another 10 years across the board in a common way. But I was doing all those things back then, and I fell in love with it. Mark, I fell in love with the Polar Bear book came out. I deep dived it. I started finding out about Richard Saul Wurman, and I started finding out about Nathan Shedroff and learning about interaction design principles. And I eventually said, you know what? I love this stuff. I really love doing it. I actually started a web design department, or it was a product really, in conjunction with the marketing department at a company I was working at. And we were designing solutions for credit unions around the country. And that's when I really fell in love with it, because I was designing websites as well as doing the graphic work. I'm one of those graphic converts, really, when you think about it, because I was doing the logos and all the graphics on the sites. I was doing all of the assets and rolling these things out, but I fell in love with it. And I said, you know what? I thought I was going to get a master's in education, and I was known for, I was on the advisory board for what's now known as Captivate. So I'm in that application still today. I'm still in that. That's where my footprint was. But I said, no, I need to shift. And I fell in love with it. And that's where the journey, the full-time journey began. I walked away from instructional design, came into UX full-fledged. Still wasn't called UX yet. It was still information architect. That's what we were, even though we did everything. And that's how I got into it. It was all on a whim. It was all being in the right place at the right time and having the right opportunity.
Yeah, it's amazing how, like you said, there's all those early, I guess, pioneers, people that were in the space have a similar thread. However, you were doing all the things, and until
Yeah.
people started naming them, it's kind of like an explorer. It's like, well, okay, now that's this. I always think of it like deep sea exploring or something, and you're continually finding new things as you're down there. Like, oh, let's go a little bit deeper.
Yes.
What's that called? And one thing I keep finding, and I know you're always giving tips to everyone about, this is really what it's called in user experience. And that's the one thing I always get is, how do I get into this industry? You've got these boot camps that are out there. You have all these, it seems like it's a buzzword more than ever. And I know you get
Yes.
this question, but what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's saying, I wonder if I should get into user experience?
Yeah, one of the I hear it a lot. Of course, I've even done some episodes on my podcast speaking specifically to it. Matter of fact, prior to the current series I'm doing on emotional intelligence, my longest series was called "So You Want to Be a UXer," which is really helping people to think about. I mean, it's you're sitting there drinking coffee. I think I want to do that. My podcast talks about step by step evaluating yourself to see, well, first it defines what UX really is. Then, because a lot of people want to get into it and they don't realize it. And a lot of people find out the hard way what UX really is and find out, this is not for me. And they walk away. I try to help them be more grounded up front by defining what UX is. This is what the work is. We are not in the business of making things pretty. We're in the business of making things easy. We're in the business of finding wins for users, wins for the business, marrying the two, and then making it work for everyone. And that's what we do. We're problem finders, problem solvers. And a lot of people don't like to find problems. They don't like to solve problems. They found out that after all of the articles that came out about how this is the up and coming things, UX, I want a piece of that. And then somebody started saying that it's easy. And so that's when you get the floods of people. This is not easy work. That's why it's called work. I mean, for one, but they get a little rim shot on there. But it's challenging work. It's work that requires a certain persona. And that's what I talked about in all those episodes. Are you really, I mean, everybody can't be a doctor. Everybody can't be a lawyer. Everybody can't be a plumber. Everybody can't be a landscaping specialist. It's people go into things because they find out that there's a match between where they really love their work. We were always told, find something that you do that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That old famous saying, it's true. If you care about people, if you love making things easy, if you love solving problems, if you love challenges, if you're not a jerk, because unfortunately UX is overrun with jerks these days, you have to have a certain persona, and then you come in, you can transition to it. You can leverage different things associated with your current whatever you're doing currently from a professional perspective, you can find ways to leverage that. You can evaluate it. I mean, sales, there's a sales component associated with UX. There is project management. There's tenants that are associated with UX. There are people who have been customer service. My background, I actually did a blog post called "What Flavor Are You?" and it talked up on Medium, and it talks about how you leverage what your past was made up of, and how those things can find adjacencies, if you will, qualities, different principles that are really aligned with UX, and it can help you to make an inroads. If it's really for you. If you're chasing the buck, this is not for you. If you, people have literally said, I want to do that. That looks easy. It's because they were looking at somebody who wasn't doing UX. And then they come over here and they find out, this is really not for me. Are you really willing to take on a job where you might have to prove yourself on a regular basis and prove your worth on a regular basis? A lot of people, they don't like that. But UX is still a relatively new discipline. And so because of that, everybody doesn't understand what we do. Everybody doesn't know what we do. And there are flat out people that don't want anything to do with you. Are you ready to do? They will tell you, why are you here? We don't need you. They will literally tell you that. And I have heard stories about people who got into UX and you know what a common, I know you know this, but a lot of listeners might not, especially if you're interested. And I'm not trying to scare you, but on the other hand, I'm trying to scare you. There are people who have crying is a top 10 activity for UX people, because you end up experiencing things that will make you cry. I have gone for walks or gone to my car before because you just needed to let something out. And then you come back in and you roll up your sleeves and you get back to it. But people will make you. I worked on a project once where this comes in. I think we have time to get this in, but I worked on a project once. We were redesigning an intranet site for a very large automobile manufacturer that I wouldn't even leave nameless, but I just narrowed it down to 37 just by saying that. And I got all the requirements. It was something a lot of people don't know about, confirming what the requirements are. I gave a first stab at where we might be going, just to have some discussion, get some more feedback from the internal clients and the stakeholders. I made some modifications, so we got to version 2 of the wireframes when wireframes were more common, because they're not that common anymore. I came before the stakeholders and the clients, look to get buy-in. If this is what we got, we can start. I can fine-tune it a little bit more, start going in front of the developers, and we can start going down the road to start rolling this thing out. It's okay, well, let us get some more stakeholders. Long story short, we went from version 2 of the wireframes, and every time I thought we had buy-in, they always wanted to get more stakeholders. We ended up in a meeting one day in a very large room at a very popular building in the world, very famous building in the world. Just throwing that in there as a jab. And there were no fewer than 50 stakeholders in that room that day, trying to see if we could get buy-in again. We ended up on version 47 of the wireframes. After all this, try to get buy-in, let me get more stakeholders, now we got to make more revisions. Version 47 of the wireframes, and it was also almost identical to version 2. Almost identical. That kind of stuff will make you want to go and pull your hair out. And so if you're ready for that, because UX work isn't easy, it is challenging. It requires thick skin. I'm doing the emotional intelligence series now to let people know how critical emotional intelligence is to being successful at UX. So if you're ready for the challenge, by all means, come and join the party.
You make a great point. I mean, you've been at this and you have a whole series, and I definitely wanted to let the listeners know that please tune in to Darren's podcast. You have been really hitting on some key discussion points that I think everyone, if you're thinking about getting in this industry, like you said, you did a whole series on, wait a minute, is this right for me? And now you're diving into something even deeper, which I think is important, is really
Yeah.
understanding that this is going to take not only some discipline when it comes to your work ethic, but also in the way you're going to handle yourself from day to day. And it
Yep.
takes a lot of practice, but also there's some energy in there that you're going to have to pull from somewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I made me think about something else I didn't mention. If you're interested in getting into UX, we actually had a discussion online the other day where that was a Q&A series that I'm doing, actually a Q&A tip series. What someone, because after I just said that, somebody will say, well, what skills do I need? What are the most important skills if I'm trying to get into UX? They're not what you think they are. Skills and traits. Let me expand skills to traits, because the skills don't mean anything if you don't have the traits. Passion is critical to UX work. If you have passion and you can weather passion in the midst of the storm, and actually it's probably better said, your passion will help you to weather storms. If you love what you do, nothing is ever going to stop you. So I tell people all the time, that's critical. If you love what you do, you're not going to pack up and go home. And I have talked people out of leaving the discipline before. I almost walked away from the discipline for the same reason, because I ran smack dab into a situation where I got tired of doing all of this research and proving my point and showing my worth and laboring to earn trust. You got to be ready to do that too, because people are not going to trust you. You don't walk in a room, they say, hey, here's John, here's Sandra. They are new UX people. They're not going to say, oh, we're so glad to see you. No, they're going to look at you with daggers coming from their eyes for absolutely no reason. You have to earn their trust. So you have to be ready to do that. And they don't want anything to do with you. They're not going to wrap their arms around you. They're not going to celebrate when they see you coming. They see you as a threat, and they see you as a deterrent to progress. You have to be willing to labor to convince them otherwise. Your passion as well as acumen, because you got to build acumen, and you never stop building acumen. Opting into UX is a lifelong learning commitment.
Oh yeah, it's continually learning.
Yes, people are being told today, oh, you can get all this in 6 months and you'll be all set. No, everything you do is a piece. I recently
Technology
said
changes, trends
technology
change,
changes,
everything.
You can start out as a specialist, which we didn't used to do. We used to do everything. Now you can start as a specialist. So the entry to UX is actually easier. Contrary to popular belief, it's easier. However, it still requires you to have passion. It requires you to bring something to the table. No business is running a charity. Nobody owes you anything, because I find a lot of entitled people today. Nobody owes you anything. So you need to be able to offer them some benefit. Give them a reason to hire you, a genuine reason to hire you. And I also say regularly, it's not about the 99 no's that you get trying to get a job. It's about the one yes. So for every time you say no, count it as a lesson learned, because you're going to hear no. It's going to happen. There's no, not sugarcoating it. Someone said something the other day. Yeah, you put a little sugar on that. No, I don't own any sugar. I'm going to let you know what it's going to be like. I trust that we're all adults, and I'll just tell you exactly what's happening, and then you'll hang in there because you're going to get the no. You're going to be in a better position knowing you're going to get a no than thinking everybody owes you something and then being told no. You're in a better position mentally. I got to know. Thank you for the opportunity to have been able to speak with you. You look at what you learn from that and you move on. That yes is one step closer. Every time you get a no, the yes is one step closer. And that's the mindset we have to take, and we continue to press through. I got no's. Here's the other side, though. I tell entry-level folks this all the time. The no's never cease. So you might as well get good at handling them up front, because I've been doing this for 26 years. I get told no all the time.
Yeah, and like you said, even when you're presenting your work, there's a no,
Yep.
even when you get the job. So it's just constantly, looking for the gift when that negative answer comes back, and then having the passion, and then also making sure that you have the skill set that matches
Yes.
and you can provide value. So there's a lot there. Wow, Darren. I mean, my head is there's a lot there, but I think you hit on some key points that I think everyone should think about. Definitely check out Darren's podcast if you would like to dive in and learn more. Also, of course, Darren's available for further education opportunities as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Darren, for being on the podcast today.
Yep. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me again, Mark. Appreciate it.